Yo, what's going on, guys? I'm Techno, and today I'm here with the Kalos post-draft power rankings, and I'm going to be your host for this, along with my friend Dylan. But unfortunately, Dylan is on vacation, so he will not be recording with us today. So I'm just going to be recording this by myself, and so this is going to be the Kalos League post-draft power rankings. If anyone uploaded their draft analysis, you can check that out. I'll be linking everyone in the description if they have a YouTube channel. But without further ado, I'm just going to get right into where I picked people, why I put them where, and kind of just like how their team plays out. So my first number 12 spot was going to go to the Sacred Seattles and their coach Cody. Now, the thing about this team is they really did not prep and like draft to like the best potential in my opinion. The way they drafted was they drafted a team that really handles bulky steel types, but they didn't draft much that gets walled by bulky steel types other than like Swellow, which can heat wave them, and Meloetta, which hits them with a Specs Focus Blast and just does massive damage. Also Mew can kind of get walled, but I think that's a kind of good regard for their team. Again, none of them really drafted bad this season in my opinion, but I think that this team just kind of lacks. The Garchomp and Landorus Incarnate picks definitely did not make sense to me, especially without Sand, because Landorus Incarnate, if you did not know, is actually not Sheer Force in this league, it's actually Sand Force, so that doesn't really benefit him at all. If you were to pick something like Mega Garchomp, Tyranitar, Landorus Incarnate, then that could have been a really strong draft. Maybe not even Landorus Incarnate, just Garchomp, Tyranitar. Garchomp was a really cool first round pick. I don't feel like he needed it first round. I feel like Mew could have been more valued, but and I might be getting this. No, I was wrong because he was actually wheel pick. So he got Mew and Garchomp in the first round, which was a really good wheel pick. But other than that, the rest of his team is just kind of lackluster. He has Blastoise, a really good spinner, but it just only has a removal on his team besides Mew. So he's not gonna have much for defog besides like Swellow, of course. No defog at all, actually. So if someone's going to try to screen set up on him, then that could be a really big problem for his team. And of course, his bulky water picks. He picked Milotic round one, something that is not often seen. He picked Milotic and Mega Blastoise back to back. Now I would have gone with a better like Wish Passer, of course, rather than Jolteon to go with Mega Blastoise, just because it's a really good wall. But the thing is, it doesn't have any recovery, and it needs Wish Passing to even like be beneficial at all. Like back when I had Mega Blastoise, I drafted Umbreon Mega Blastoise Synergy Core, and that core really worked out for me. So the thing is, I think this draft is pretty decent. Really hype, not really hyper offensive because he has his walls. I don't think they're going to be doing much though. He's lacking his grass type in the Fire Water Grass core, and of course he has two bulky water types. I feel like something like Tangrowth Mega Blastoise could have been a lot better rather than Milotic, since Milotic is kind of lackluster compared to other Pokemon. Of course, this is League format, where anything can happen with Milotic, such as Mirror Coat, Haze, Dragon Tail, Ice Beam, Dragon Pulse for stuff like Kyurem. But I just feel like this pick wasn't necessarily the best. His whole team is just kind of in my opinion, and that's all I really have to say about his team. I'm going to be leaving Dylan's thoughts about these teams in the description, so if any of you want to see that, it's just easier for me than to have to summarize them because he writes a lot. He's a really dedicated analyst, and I'm looking forward to recording with him next week. So the next person I have is going to be Peter and the Detroit Pyroars. Now, Peter's draft is really interesting. He has stuff like webs with Mega Venusaur, Volcanion, Diggersby, webs with Volcanion, Diggersby, even the Mienshao, the Gudra. They're all going to be really nice. The only problem is if you're going to draft webs, you need to draft a way to block Rapid Spin, B, something that doesn't really... Well, he does have a way to block Rapid Spin, but it's really not the most reliable way, and I'm going to get into that in a second, because it's not bulky at all, and B, something that can kind of, like, take advantage of defog. That's something that I've always really liked. Defiant users, competitive users, all sorts of stuff like that. That's something that I really feel like helps with sticky webs, and I feel like his team is too passive for sticky webs. He has stuff like Bronzong, Golbat, Cradily, Xatu, none of which like really are the best with sticky webs because they're all pretty decently passive. Besides Bronzong, if it's holding like Macho Brace with Gyro Ball, that can be really powerful. But stuff like Volcanion and Diggersby with the Galvantula pick are really nice because they both just hit so hard with Specs and Band respectively. And once they hit hard, they like something dies basically. They're just those types of Pokemon. Now he also drafted Goodra, one of the best Volcanion checks in the game, counter too. Uh, and I feel like that pick was really nice for him just to kind of like synergize well with everything else. You picked Mismagius, Bronzong, stuff that kind of walls Diggersby. Now, anyone in this league knows that Diggersby is a monster. It's just kind of like something that's been proven throughout like many seasons of the NBA. Diggersby has always just performed super well, and it's going to continue performing well. So it's going to be hard to see how Peter is going to do with this Diggersby pick, but it's going to be interesting. Of course, he has the Mega Venusaur Volcanion core, which could be very nice. Of course, they do share some neutral weakness typing, which he doesn't cover up too well on his team, except for certain stuff like Bronzong, Golbat. His core, Bronzong and Golbat, is pretty nice, but it's not going to be the best, just because, well, actually, Bronzong, Golbat, and Goodra is a really nice core for the most part, just because of the electric resist and just resisting a lot of different types. His team synergizes pretty well. All these teams are pretty good, as I was saying earlier. I just feel like some teams are slightly better, and that's why I rank them higher. So that's all I really have to say about Peter's team. So on to the next team. So the next team we're going to have are the Munich Torterra, coached by Joshua. Now, the Munich Torterra have a very interesting team. They decided to do something that I did a couple seasons ago and draft a team that's very weak to electric types or electric spam with something like Mega Sceptile. That was actually the season in which I won. Humble brag, humble pat on the back. But I feel like his picks were very well thought out. Of course, he picked Azumarill round 1, which I don't know, I didn't really see eye to eye on it. Azumarill is a great Pokemon. I just don't feel like it's a round 1 pick. I feel like it's more of a round 2 or 3 pick. Stuff like Thundurus can do even better. Since he has Thundurus, I feel like that would have been a better round 1 pick. Even Skarmory would have been better, but he got it all, which was really nice for him, definitely. Spikes with Mega Sceptile, going to be really beneficial for him. And his team's just very offensive with the Umbreon Skarmory core, of course. The Umbreon Skarmory core, along with a Nidoqueen, is going to be something that's really going to benefit him. They just all synergize very well with the Wish Pass and then the defensive typings. Offensively, Mega Sceptile only really struggles with bulky steel types, which the rest of his team can kind of struggle with, but he has stuff to deal with it, which is going to be really nice for him, like Nidoqueen, even Emboar, Thundurus Incarnate to an extent. So his team's just very good, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he's going to do this season. He's never really had the best NBA season, but it's going to be interesting to see how he does this season in his season returning back to Kalos. So the next coach we are going to have is going to be Tobi, coach of the San Diego Dragonites. Now, when you look at Tobi's team, he drafted OU incredibly well. He drafted Kieran Black, Mega Metagross, and Landorus Therian. Now, of course, there is the Mega Metagross curse, which is renowned in the NBA for those of you who did not know. But Mega Metagross, even though it's cursed, it's always going to put in work, like no matter what. It's just what Mega Metagross does, basically. You don't really necessarily have to have skill to be able to use Mega Metagross good, in my opinion, just because it's just one of those mons where you click moves and then something dies. Which, it's a weird Pokemon for some people to use, I guess, but I think that Mega Metagross is just really good, like way too good. And if it wasn't cursed, I feel like people would draft it much more. So, the reason they have him ranked so low is because his team loses to a lot of key threats that have been drafted, and it loses to those key threats pretty bad. I'm not going to list them all off right now in case I'm going to be spoiling people's plans for his team, but I'm noticing some key threats that actually just do tons of work to his team, and that could be really unfortunate for him. I feel like he drafted with a plan kind of like really offensive, as well as just like keeping up his defensive presence with the Sylveon Rotom Wash core, which isn't necessarily the best core in general. They don't synergize very well together, and that's really his only defensive backbone. Everything else is just kind of offensive with Kieran Black, Landorus Therian. Landorus Therian, if you're going to argue that it's defensive, it's a horrible defensive Pokemon in this format. It's much better offensively, like a Metagross, and then stuff like Conkeldurr, Hitmontop. He drafted Conkeldurr and Hitmontop, which something that I didn't really understand. Well, of course, both of them get Rapid Spin. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, James. But, Hitmontop, Conkeldurr, something I didn't really get. They're both bulky, but he had Crobat before, which, spoilers, he's going to be dropping. That's why he got Conkeldurr. So, that's kind of just like how his draft played out. And I feel like he did a really good job drafting, but it just was kind of lackluster. Dugtrio with Metagross is going to be nice, but Dugtrio is just really weak in general. I don't think it's the best in the format, unless it's like really skillly paired with something. And I feel like it's going to be good for his team. I feel like something like Magneton would be better, though, just because I feel like Magneton's much better in this format, much stronger, and much more reliable in terms of like trapping steel types, in my opinion. But that's my opinion, obviously, and all of you are subject to your own opinions. I just don't think that his team is as good as some of the other teams that I see. I feel like he didn't draft with enough synergy. I feel like he drafted with enough, okay, I'm going to pick raw power and just throw it all on one team. So that's kind of how I feel about his team. So moving on, we're going to have our 5 through 8. So at number 8, I'm going to have the Charlotte Luxray, coached by Matt. Now, this team, I think it's a very good team defensively, but it's a weird team too. He has Mega Slowbro, Blissey, Gliscor, Tangrowth, Togetic as his core, and that's just an absolutely monstrous core. There's going to be very little that's going to be able to get past that. But the thing is, the rest of his picks are just kind of lackluster. He doesn't really have much for, like, I guess his Magnezone pick could help with stuff like Noivern, Staraptor, but he's a much more defensive team. He picked Blissey. I'm not a big fan of Blissey, Chansey in the format. I've used it before. Doesn't mean I like it. I've just wanted to experiment with it. I feel like, personally, I can use it very well just because I know what sets up on it, but some people don't know how it gets set up on. And if you don't know how it gets set up on, a word to the wise, you're going to want to look for stuff that has 100 HP or more, like base 100 HP, because that can set up on Seismic Tosses, which is unfortunate for Blissey, obviously. But stuff like coverage for those Pokemon can be really nice. Mega Slowbro round 1, it was an interesting pick, but Mega Slowbro is actually a really good Pokemon in this format. Really looking forward to seeing how he uses it, because Mega Slowbro, very underrated. I feel like the Blissey Mega Slowbro core is going to be absolutely monstrous paired with Togetic, Gliscor. He was looking kind of weak to Volturn at first with the Tangrowth Slowbro pick, but then he fixes it all up with the Gliscor pick, and that's what's really nice about his team. I could have ranked him higher, but these next couple of teams are all just really, really good. Like I said, no one in this Kalos League really drafted bad, in my opinion. I feel like everyone drafted a decent team, and then these picks are all very, very good, very solid teams in general. Matt, I really like your team. It was just unfortunate that I had to rate you this low. Reason I rated you this low is because some of your picks seemed out of place. Of course, you got some really good value in UU, but I don't feel like it was enough for what you kind of had going with your team, which was unfortunate to say the least. Yeah, I like your team, but other teams I thought were just better overall versus your team. Gliscor, of course, Iffymon in the format, but Magnezone Gliscor core is actually going to be really nice for pressuring hidden powers. I'm really looking forward to seeing how you use this team, as I already said. So, next up we are going to have the Miami Rotom-Heat and their coach Thunder. So he decided to draft Mega Medicham with crazy good Walcorn, Vaporeon, Amoonguss, as well as Togekiss to sponge up Bug-type moves, which, another thing I should say, Bug-type moves tend to break through more defensive teams just because of the bulk of certain types. something like Scizor, Durant, Excavalier, stuff like that. They all break through certain teams like that. And of course, this is another person whose team kind of just gets broken through by Scizor, but that's a story for another day. As for right now, his team, Medicham, Togekiss, Amoonguss, Hydreigon, Vaporeon, all really solid picks. Of course, Donphan also there in the mix. Registeel, Hydreigon, and Togekiss, probably one of the best Fairy Dragon Steel cores you can get. They all synergize really nicely, just in terms of like, oh, well, I'm weak to this, I can go into this, and all sorts of stuff. Really good core. Really impressed with it. Mega Medicham, I don't feel like it has the most support it can get. I feel like he's going to be whittling stuff down with stuff like X-Cloud, and then just kind of like cleaning up with Medicham, maybe like Bullet Punch or something. His team is really slow. Nothing goes over base 100 speed, which could be really unfortunate for him in certain matchups. But I feel like his team still has what it takes to be a top contender, just because of how bulky it is, how well he's going to be able to use it, if he's going to be able to use it well, obviously. I feel like he's going to be able to use this well, because it's one of those teams where it's hard not to use it well. Just a Medicham, Togekiss, Amoonguss, all sorts of stuff like that. Really good picks in general. Really like your team, but as said for all of these, there are just some teams that I thought were higher than yours. So the next pick on the list is going to be the Kentucky Fried Torchics, which, sorry Falcon, but I still think that's the stupidest name in league format. That and the Chicago Bears. I think that all those team names are really stupid. Okay, so his team, in my opinion, is probably one of the most skilly, like, I don't know how to explain it. This is like a team that he would draft. He has a staple mons like Mega Gardevoir, Zygarde, Porygon 2, Jellicent, all sorts of stuff like that, which he just really likes using. And I think he's going to do really well with stuff like that. Zapdos, Infernape, of course, two stuff that I have in Kanto, so they've got to be good, obviously. He has a really nice Firewater, Grass Core in the Trevenant pick late and new, Infernape and Jellicent. I feel like these all synergize well together. Of course, there's a Ghost weakness on his team, but he kind of synergizes that with Porygon 2, plus a Pursuit Trapping Sneasel, which can get rid of Ghosts, and the Skuntank, which is another thing that gets rid of Ghosts. I feel like his team just kind of like has what it takes to be a top contender. Of course, he's kind of knockoff weak. No, not really, because he has a lot of really good resistances. Of course, every team is basically knockoff weak because no one wants to get knocked off. No one wants to lose their item. Of course, Porygon 2, definitely not going to want to lose this item, but everything else, it should be fine. He's not going to want to get knocked off, but then again, no other team's going to get knocked off, so that was kind of a poor point by me. Sorry about that, guys. So, his team just kind of has what it takes to be top. Of course, he has some overlapping typings, which I've never minded, but I feel like some of these overlapping typings weren't as necessary. He probably picked up Swampert in the RU kind of as a rocker, late tier rocker pick, which I understand that. He only has like 3 rockers on his team, which I guess is nice. Masquerain Gardevoir could be very interesting, getting up sticky webs for the Gardevoir, and then coming in and just clicking Hyper Voice a couple of times, and boom, everything dies. Definitely interesting. Of course, his team is semi-slow, but it's not that slow. Fastest thing hits 361 speed, plus he has the webs. So it's going to be interesting to see how his team works. A very good team, very solid draft in general. Impressed, definitely. So, next pick we're going to have is the Southampton Staraptors. Now, the Southampton... I can't speak right now. Okay, the Southampton Staraptors... Like, to think I've been recording for... I've been recording for a long time, and now I just can't speak. So, the Southampton Staraptors... probably got one of the most offensively threatening drafts I have ever seen. They got Megalopony, which one of the best Pokemon in the format, just in general. Great Pokemon, especially when it synergizes with Latios, which he also managed to get. Just because a Calm Mind Latios set deals with most bulky psychics, the only thing that's really going to wall Megalopony. Then there's also the Dark Ghost typing, which Megalopony resists, that Latios is weak to. Really solid offensive core in general from Lewis there. Southampton Staraptors. I don't think I said that. Yeah, they're the Southampton Staraptors. He also got the Crocodile pick, another really good pick for his team. Pursuit Trapper with Megalopony. Of course, he was looking kind of like fighting weak. Then he got stuff like Rotom, Slowking, and Aromatisse. All really good picks for his team. Slowking with Shaman going to be really, really nice, especially if you consider that they kind of like complement each other pretty well just because of their typings, obviously. Especially with a Megalopony, where you just kind of like weaken everything for Megalopony to come in. Click Seed Flare, I can't speak anymore. You click Seed Flare a few times, you weaken everything. Stuff like Thunderous Therian comes in, just clicks Thunderbolts, and then Megalopony comes in. His team is just so overwhelming offensively, and I love it. I've always loved offensive teams. Really looking forward to seeing how well he does with this team. I think he's going to do exceptionally. I think this could be a season where he comes up to Kanto. It's going to be very interesting to see how his team is going to work. So, without further ado, very good team, Lewis. Really looking forward to seeing you battle. I hope you do very well with this team. Very good team. Very solid. You've always drafted very well. I think it's just that you're not getting your mojo on, but you can. I feel like you can turn it around this season. I feel like you'll do well. Okay, next pick, we're going to have the Bahama Hariyama and their coach Jamal. Now, for those of you who don't know Jamal, Jamal drafts the same Pokemon every season, Clefable and Heatran. If Clefable and Heatran are not on his team, then you're not drafting with Jamal. But in all seriousness, his draft synergizes incredibly well with his Mega pick, which was Mega Sharpedo. Mega Sharpedo, of course, we do not have the Mega Turn 1 rule in the NBA, so that's going to be really beneficial for him. So stuff like Sharpedo with Chestnut, Spike Support, Doublade, Heatran, Keldeo even. Keldeo, Sharpedo, although they have overlapping water types, their synergy is just very nice in general. Keldeo is just very good Pokemon. And it also synergizes well with Doublade because they can handle the Steel types, especially with the Heatran. There's not really going to be much Steel types threatening this team. Although he has overlapping types, his team is just really, really good. Clefable, Heatran, of course, very good core, especially with a Flygon just chilling in the back. Good defogger, very underrated pick. I've never really liked Flygon, but I understand why people do. Definitely a solid pick. And of course, he also has stuff like the Chestnut, which Chestnut, very underrated wall. If you spike stack, oh, excuse me, if you spike stack and then you go into your Sharpedo, you basically weaken everything. Sharpedo comes in, clicks Protect, and then you basically kind of just sweep everything. That's how Sharpedo works. One of the best ways to use Sharpedo, in my opinion, Mega Sharpedo. That is, and I just think his team's very, very well constructed. Although he has overlapping types, like I said, I don't care about overlapping types. Overlapping types do not matter to me. I draft overlapping types all the time. That does not mean that I dislike them. Well, that does not mean that I like love them, but that does not mean that I like. But of course, I don't dislike them because I draft them all the time. I think they can be beneficial, but it depends on what roles the Pokemon fill. Like, you're not going to want to draft Clefairy and Clefable and Togetic on the same team, which, of course, someone in Kanto did. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. So, up next, we're going to have the Monroe Mew. Monroe Mew, they have Tyranitar Excadrill. That should just kind of speak for itself. Tyranitar Excadrill, one of the best offensive cores in the entire format, entire game in general. Tyranitar is a humongous offensive threat, and so is Excadrill, especially paired with the Tyranitar. He also has stuff like Entei, Gyarados, Reuniclus, Mega Altaria, Gyarados, Reuniclus, Altaria, Cofagrigus, all going to handle that fighting weakness that you see in the beginning. Solid, really solid. He does not have too much of a weakness to water because of stuff like Altaria, Gyarados, Virizion. I feel like this team is going to be very beneficial for him to kind of just like come in and sweep with Excadrill. Just the way he's constructed it. He's used his wall breakers, he's used setup sweepers. Entei, of course, very good wall breaker, very powerful, very, very powerful. Mega Altaria is one of the better Pokemon in this format, better Mega Pokemon. just because its bulk and then its offensive presence, they're all really good for Mega Altaria. And I feel like his team just so powerful overall. Of course, some of his later picks like Stoutland really going to help with stuff like Tyranitar and the Sand. Stoutland Excadrill really powerful because Excadrill can handle all those bulky steel types that Stoutland does not appreciate. And then stuff like, yeah, Stoutland's going to be able to come in and just pick off everything else. Tyranitar, really solid pick for this team. I love Tyranitar. I think it's highly, I don't know if I would say underrated because it's always drafted basically. A very good Pokemon, despite the fact that it has a 4 times weakness to fighting. But I think that he can use Tyranitar well this season, and hopefully this will be the season where Bobby kind of like shines because he's never really shined before, and he deserves it. He's put in a lot of work. And unfortunately, these last 2 seasons just haven't been all there for him. But I think that this season is going to be a turnaround, and just in helping him, like, kind of like move up to Kanto. All right, so very good draft, Bobby. Without further ado, our next pick is going to be the Denver Galvantulas. Now, Dylan was talking about how he does not have a steel type on his team, and while that may be hurting towards him, his team gets kind of weak to fighting types after that happens. Of course, he has the Mega Latias Tornadus T-Core. His OU picks are monstrous, the most monstrous OU picks I've ever seen. Well, besides our number one, who decided to draft, Noah drafted Tornadus Therian and Mega Latias plus a Manaphy. And if you just look at all of that combined, that is so scary. So, so scary. Stuff like Snorlax, Alomomola, very good defensive cores there, especially with the fighting resists in Tornadus Therian, Megaladios, sorry. And then also just dealing with bulky steel types with stuff like Manaphy, Magmortar, even Mamoswine if it just comes in on them. He just has nukes on his team, plus really good defensive presence. Florgus Latias, really good core. He does not really struggle with fighting types yet. If he got a steel type, he would, I feel like, more. I don't feel like Sock was a necessary pick for his team. Very interesting. Neither was Meowstic, really, but, to each their own. I feel like his team's just very solid in general. He does not really have too many bad picks. Like, besides the Meowstic, which I don't really understand. Of course, he might be wanting to Thunder Wave with Prankster for stuff like Manaphy. But then, like, you can just do that with other Pokemon. But that's not my point. The point is that his team, very solid. I'm really looking forward to seeing him use this team this season. Like, I'm looking forward to using all of them. So without further ado, our number one pick is going to be Emmanuel and the Guadalajara Delphox. Now, okay, this team is stupid. It's Victini, Weavile, Scizor, Suicune, Raikou. That's stupid. Like, that alone makes his team stupid broken offensively. Especially with the Suicune core with Gourgeist. Gourgeist, one of the most underrated low-tier picks out of them all. He's going to be doing so well this season, in my opinion. Plus, he has so much skill as a battler that he kind of just, like, I don't feel like there's any way he's not going to make Kanto this season. So, stuff like Machamp. Machamp is a really nice pick for stuff like bulky steels, which could wall Scizor, Weavile, and of course, Victini is going to want to also break through them. With also Suicune, even Raikou with Aura Sphere can break through them. Uxie Spiritomb, very nice core. I like how he's making himself not super weak to stuff like Mega Medicham, which was drafted, of course. And I think he like realized this, that he could be weakened by Mega Medicham. Of course, he really offensively handles most teams. He doesn't really, there's like no team where his team just doesn't really have a good matchup. Like, just has a really poor matchup because of the way he drafted this team. I feel like this team is the team to beat this season. Because of just how offensively overwhelming it is. Plus, you got to break through his bulk. This team is just great. The Basculin pick, I'm a fan of it. I've always wanted to see Basculin in this format. Plus, he's going to get access to both forms, even though, in my opinion, only the... I forget. I think that they both get adaptability, but I think only one of them... No, I don't know. leave in the comments if they both get adaptability or if one of them gets adaptability. But he picked super well this season, really knew what he was doing. Another one of Emmanuel's great drafts. Mega Scizor going to be putting in so much work this season. Plus Victini, Weavile, Raikou, Suicune. And of course we have Raikou as UU in the NBA, which is another interesting thing. But yeah, not Raikou. Emmanuel, solid team. Really, really solid team. Really looking forward to seeing you battle this season and use this team. I hope you use it effectively because it's power. Really power. So without further ado, guys, thank you guys for watching. I'm definitely going to be leaving Dylan's kind of analysis on every one of these in the description. He will be joining me next week. He's just on vacation right now, and this was just easier for me to talk about by myself. So, thank you guys, and I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any opinions on where someone should have been ranked, feel free to leave so in the comment. I'm fine with anything. Okay, bye guys. I'll see you guys next week.